As we move into the new year, I wanted to take a look back at the past year of Trackmania, and more specifically, the Track of the Days. So in today's video, I'll be going over a bunch of stats and information on those such tracks. I will start off on a per month basis, giving various stats, including average track medal times, track creators, track styles, and world record holders. To end off, I will give the same stats for the overall year, and I will also showcase the shortest and longest track of the days, and my personal best and worst driven laps of the year based on my rankings. That's it for the intro. Let's get started with January. The average track times listed in the upper right made the currently playing track Borpa Spin by Skarzor the most average track of the month of January. Skarzor was tied with 4 others this month: Ellipse, Polycept, Prof 10, and Yamichan with 2 track of the days each, meaning 26 of the 31 tracks had a different creator. Borpa Spin was one of 5 ice tracks created this month, tying it with Mixed Surface as the second most created style. Dirt came in as the most created with 7. Mika TM drove the world record on the track, and it was one of 2 they had in January. This ties them with 3 others, but behind Levon, Maui, and Shadow Crancer, who each had 4. The average track times in February made the track CMYK by Zephys the most average track of the month. This was Zephys' only track created this month, tying them with 23 others. Neutron and Proof were tied at the top, each having created 2 tracks. CMYK was one of 4 speed tech tracks in the month, making it the second most created type. This is ahead of Grass and Tech tracks, which were created 3 times, but behind Dirt and Mixed Surface, each being created 6 times. Loco G has held a world record on the track, and it was their only world record this month. Insanity held 2 world records, Dexter and Maui tied at 3, and Kebby had by far the most, earning themselves 7 top spots. Based on the average track times in March, Akita 4 Koyo by Prof 10 was the most average track. This was Prof 10's only created track in the month, and that tied them with 26 others who also created 1. Averios 96 and Sags were tied with the most created tracks with 2 each. Akita 4 Koyo was one of 4 speed tech tracks in March. This is tied with Speed Fun tracks for the 3rd most, but behind Mixed Surface tracks, of which there were 5, and Dirt tracks come in at the top spot again with 7 total. Dexter held the world record on the track and was one of 6 they held in the month. These 6 records put them ahead of Elcon, who had 3, and Kebby, Mika, and Zodiark, who all had 2. Ipnu Rivulet by Polycept was the most average track of April based on the average track times in the month. This was Polycept's only track in the month, and that tied them with 20 others. Bad Rig, Intax, and Rave Out each made 2 tracks, and Nightwolf comes in with the most, having created 3. Ipnu Rivulet was one of 7 Mixed Surface tracks this month, putting it at the top spot. This is ahead of Dirt, Grass, Tech, and Speed Tech, which all were represented 4 times. Mime Cut held the world record on the track, and it was their only one this month. This is behind Insanity, who had 2, Barbos, Dexter, and Shadow Crancer, who each had 3, but Maui came in with the most, having 5 world records. The average track times in May made the track Route 66 by Alex CB2 the most average track. This was Alex's only track in the month, tying them with 24 others. 3 creators were tied at the top spot with 2 each: Nacho QT, Ohio JG, and Zephys. Route 66 was one of 3 speed tech tracks in May. This is tied with ice tracks, but behind Dirt and Grass, which each had 4. Mixed Surface tracks yet again come in at the top spot with 9 created. Maui held the world record on the track, and it was one of 7 they had this month. And for the 2nd month in a row, they held the most world records. This put them ahead of Jake Ray, who held 4 world records, and Shadow Crancer, who held 2. Based on the average track times in June, New Orleans by Reuter was the most average track in the month. This was the first month of the year in which every track had a unique creator, meaning this was Reuter's only track in the month. New Orleans was one of 2 water tracks in the month, tying it with Grass. Ice and Full Speed tracks were each made 3 times. Dirt was the next highest with 4. Tech had 5, and Mixed Surface tracks continue to lead the way with 8. Sussy TM held the world record on the track, and it was their only world record in the month. This puts them behind many racers: Medicine, Elcon, Jake Ray, Mime Cut, Pole, Shadowcrancer, Tiger Shark, and Zodiark, who all held 2 world records. Maui again comes in with the most world records this month with 5. Skyholm by Mike Revert was the most average track in July based on the month's average track times. This was Mike Revert's only created track in the month, and it tied them with 26 others. Prof 10 and Scarzor each made 2 tracks, which was the most of the month. Skyholm was one of 4 speed tech tracks in July. This is ahead of Dirt, Full Speed, Grass, and Lull tracks, which were each featured 3 times. Ice tracks were a bit more common with 5 in the style, but 6 mixed surface tracks were created, putting them at the top spot again. Dexter held the world record on the track, making it one of 2 records they held. This tied them with Bren, Kebby, and Maui, but behind Tiger Shark and Jake Ray, who each had 3. Elcon held the most in July, having 4 world records. The average track times in August made Lustrous Night Sky by Jetaplex the most average track of the month. This was Jetaplex's only created track in the month, and that tied them with 28 others. Mega Drift Toter was the only creator with multiple tracks, having 2. Lustrous Night Sky was one of 3 speed fun tracks in the month. This is ahead of Dirt, Full Speed, and Plastic, which were each represented 2 times, but behind Ice tracks, which were made 4 times. Mixed Surface and Speed Tech tracks came in as the most created styles, each being made 7 times. Kebby had the world record on the track, and it was their only world record in the month. Megorian, Mime Cut, Murray, Ratchet, Techie, and Tiger Shark all had 2. Dexter came in with the most with 10, which is the most someone held in any single month. Based on the average track times in September, Bloody Mary by Yayo was the most average track of the month. This was one of 2 tracks they created in the month, tying them with Lackadel, but ASCII TM created 3 tracks in September, which was the most in the month. 23 others tied with just 1. Bloody Mary was one of 3 tech tracks in the month. This is behind Grass tracks, which were made 4 times, and Speed Tech tracks, which came in with 5. Dirt and Mixed Surface tracks led the way in September with 6 in each style. Barbos TM held the world record on the track, and it was one of 2 world records they had. This ties them with Dexter and Shadowcrancer. Beating these 3 out would be Zodiark, who took 4 top spots, but beating them all would be Kebby, who had 5 world records. Once in a Blue Moon by GJKF was the most average track in October based on the average track times. This was their only track in the month, and this is the second and final month in which every track had a different creator. Once in a Blue Moon was one of 7 mixed surface tracks in September, making it the most created style in the month. Behind it was Dirt, Full Speed, and Tech, which were each featured 4 times, and the third most was Speed Tech with 3. Chicken Run held the world record on the track, and it was their only world record in the month. Coming in with 2 each would be Medicine, Megorian, Fixa, and Zodiark. Ratchet held 3 of the world records, and we had a tie at the top with Elcon and Aerozel, each having 5 world records each. The average track times in November made the track Niepodlegli by Deska the most average track in the month. This was Deska's only track in the month, tying them with 23 others. Florenzius, Lackadel, and Spacco all tied at the top, creating 2 tracks each. Niepodlegli was a Plastic track, and it was tied with Dirt and Speed Fun tracks, each being created 2 times. Full Speed, Ice, and Speed Tech tracks were each represented 3 times. Tech tracks were made 5 times, and Mixed Surface tracks come in at the top spot again, with 7 being created. Shadowcrancer had the world record on the track, and is one of 2 they had in the month. This tied them with Mutta, Razg, and Sussy. Aerozel and Tiger Shark held the most world records, tying with 3. Based on the average track times in December, Hovey by Titato was the most average track of the month. This was one of 2 tracks they created in the month, tying them with Prof 10 and Spacco for the most. 25 others tying with just 1 track created. Hovey was one of 4 full speed tracks in the month, tying it with Ice tracks. This is ahead of Dirt and Tech tracks, of which there were 3 each, but behind Speed Tech tracks, which 5 were made. Once again, Mixed Surface tracks had the most with 9. Max 347 held the world record on the track, and it was their only world record in the month. Evo Chroma, Kebby, Maui, Pole, and Tiger Shark each tied with 2 each. Elcon, Aerozel, and Insanity each tied at the top, having 3 apiece. Finally, the average track times for the entire year made the track Avocado by Ripfish the most average track of the day in 2022. Avocado was the track of the day on February 19th, and it was one of 2 track of the days Ripfish created in the entire year. Avocado was a mixed surface track and was one of 82 in the year. Kebby had the world record on Avocado and was one of 20 they held in the year. I have a lot more to go over for the entire year and how I acquired all the information I've shown today, so stay tuned in as I will go over them shortly during the longest track of the day section. The LOL track of the day, MTC Hab Miklieb Warfel by Stoops Kaiser, released on March 1st, and it was the shortest track of 2022. YKaz, ATN, and Toss all tied with a time of 3.917 seconds. Both those replays were at half speed. Let's play it one more time in full speed. The longest track of the day in 2022 was MTC Solstice. MTC Solstice was released on June 21st and was created by Tona. This was one of 2 tracks Tona created in the year, and this tied them with 36 others with 2 created. This puts them ahead of 111 people who created 1 track. 16 users created 3 tracks, 12 users created 4, and 7 users created 5. Hank Is Me and Scarzor tied for 4th most, having created 7 tracks each. Ellipse and Proof come in at 3rd place, having created 8 tracks each. In 2nd place, we have Prof 10, who created 9 tracks. But one person stands alone at the top with the most created tracks in 2022, and that person would be Nightwolf, who had 10 created tracks. The website trackmania.io was used to find these creators. I only chose the person who is listed as the track being by, so anyone who was listed as a feature or helped on a track that was listed elsewhere was not used in the information I gathered for this video. MTC Solstice was a mixed surface track, and mixed surface tracks led the entire year with 82 in total created in this style. Dirt tracks come in 2nd place, having 51 tracks created in this style. And rounding out the top 3 would be Speed Tech tracks, which came in with 46 created in this style. As for the rest, we have ice tracks that were made 37 times, tech tracks were made 36 times, grass tracks were made 31 times, full speed tracks were made 27 times, speed fun tracks were made 24 times, lull tracks were made 12 times, plastic tracks were made 9 times, water tracks were made 5 times, NASCAR tracks were made 3 times, and finally we have backwards tracks, which had just 2. I used the website Trackmania Exchange and its tag system to find the track styles for each track. If a track had just 1 tag, I used that tag for the track style. If it had multiple tags, I would look at a replay of the track being driven and would pick a tag I felt was the most appropriate for the track. The same could be said if a track wasn't on the site. I would watch a replay of the track and again pick the one I felt fit the best. Elcon had the world record on MTC Solstice, and it was one of 24 they had in the year, and this was enough for 3rd most in 2022. Behind them was Kebby, who held 20, Tiger Shark, who held 19, and Shadow Crancer, who had 18. Dexter had the 2nd most in the year with 28 world records in total. But leading the way and taking home the most world records in the year was Maui, who had 32 world records. In total, there were 96 different people who held a world record in 2022. Trackmania.io was once again used to gather these world record holders. If 2 or more people tied with the best time, the person who was listed in the first spot was the one I chose to be the world record holder. Coincidentally, my worst personal lap of the year was on the most average track in July, which was Sky Home by Microvert. Sky Home was the track of the day on July 9th, and my rank on the track was 6,820th. I started playing Trackmania 2020 on July 7th, meaning this was my 3rd ever track driven in the game. I completed the track with a time of 52.068, which gave me a silver medal. Sky Home was in the style of a speed tech track, and this being my 3rd ever track driven, I had no idea how to drift, and that is very apparent in my replay. And finally, my best lap of the entire year was driven on the Track of the Day Aquatic Park. Aquatic Park was the Track of the Day on August 19th and was created by Mr. Nagu. My time on the track was 43.661, which was good enough for the author medal and for the rank of 177th. This author medal was only my second ever on a Track of the Day. The track style at the time was quite foreign to me, but I found the track quite addicting and was one of few tracks I actually grinded to get a better rank on. So there we have it, the stats for the entire year of 2022 Trackmania Track of the Days. But hang on, I have a bit more I was unable to get to during the past sections, so I will quickly go over it here. Charting out all the months and their times, you can see that the shortest month of the year was in January. It comes in with an author time of 44.988, and coming in at a close second place was December with a time of 45.062. The longest month on average was September, coming in with an author time of 48.888, with February coming in a close second place with a time of 48.672. Again, I started playing Trackmania 2020 in July, and my average time in the month was good enough for a silver medal, and the same could be said for the month of August. But thereafter, I started averaging gold and better times, with December being the first month I got gold or better on every track in the month. As for the year compared to the past 2 years, 2022 was just barely faster than the average 2020 author time. The time this year was 46.908, and that beat the average author time from 2020 by just 5 thousandths of a second. The average gold, silver, and bronze times in 2022 were much faster though, beating 2020's times by over a second each. 2021's times were far less though, as the author time was a 45.151, and all the other medals all being nearly 2 seconds faster than the 2 other years. Alright, now we're finally through with it. To end off, I just want to thank and congratulate everyone I mentioned in today's video. Congratulations to all the world record holders in the year. Thank you to the websites I mentioned earlier, Trackmania.io and Trackmania Exchange, which without would have made gathering all this much harder than it otherwise would have been. Thank you to the track creators, who without Track of the Days would most likely not even be a thing. Finally, thank you to the viewers who decided to stick around and watch to the very end. I very much appreciate it. To end the video, I will leave you off with the credits of every world record holder and every track creator of the year.